The innkeeper shut the door in my face, and the storm swallowed the last of the light behind me. I stood on the step of Greywater Inn with snow crusting my beard, my cloak worn thin as paper, and a fist of coins that did not exist. I had walked the high pass on purpose, ragged and unknown, because a crown teaches a man nothing about the hearts of those who serve beneath it. Kings are lied to gently. Beggars are told the truth. So I had shed the name Alpha King Kalen Varn at the edge of my own lands and become a nobody in the killing dark, and I had learned a great deal already. Not one door on that road had opened to a stranger with empty hands. The window beside me glowed amber, full of firelight and warm voices and the smell of barley soup, and none of it was for me. I turned my collar against the wind and told myself I would knock at one more inn before dawn. Then the door opened again. A young woman slipped out onto the step, pulling it shut behind her so the warmth would not escape. She was thin, plainly dressed, a servant by her apron and her chapped hands, and she looked at me the way no one had looked at me in 3 nights of walking. Not through me, at me. "You'll die out here," she said simply. "Come around the back, there's a stable door they don't watch." My wolf, silent and cold in me for longer than I cared to count, lifted its head. I did not ask why. I followed her along the black side of the inn, boots breaking through drifts to my knee, until she pried open a low door into a linta warm with the breath of horses. She sat me on a stool near the wall where the kitchen fire's heat bled through the stones, and she vanished, and I sat there believing she would not return, because that is what I had come to expect of the world. She returned. She carried a wooden bowl in both hands, steam rising off it, and she pressed it into my frozen fingers as though it were the most ordinary act in creation. Barley soup, thick with what little meat the pot had held. Beside it, half a loaf. "Eat slow," she said. "You'll make yourself sick if you rush it." "This is yours," I said. It was not a question. I could see it in her face, the small hunger of someone who had given away her own supper. She shrugged and looked away and lied kindly. "I ate already." Something moved in my chest then that I had no name for, a warmth I had not felt in years. Not the heat of the fire, which had barely reached me, but something kindled from within by a bowl of soup pressed into my hands by someone who wanted nothing. I had been given jewels and fortresses and the loyalty of armies. None of it had ever warmed me like this. My wolf stirred and pressed close beneath my skin, and for one dizzy moment the whole storm seemed to hold its breath. "Mate," the word rose in me, quiet and absolute. I looked at this girl in her patched apron, ladling out her own hunger to a beggar she would never see again, and I understood that I had crossed 3 frozen passes, searching my kingdom for exactly this, and had almost walked past it in the dark. "What is your name?" I asked. "Wren," she said. "Just Wren. Now eat before it goes cold and I've wasted good soup on a stubborn man." So I ate and she stayed, feeding the small fire in the corner brazier, glancing now and then at the door in case her absence was noticed. I asked her why. Why give her meal to a stranger when the storm might take her master's temper if he found her gone? "Because it's cold," she said, as if that answered everything. Then, softer, "and because no one deserves to be shut out for having nothing. My mother used to say the gods walk the roads in rags to see who'll open a door. I stopped believing that a long time ago." She almost smiled. "But I opened the door anyway, just in case." I had to look into the fire so she would not see my face. She did not know that the man she had sheltered could raise or ruin every soul under that roof with a word. She did not know that the wolf she could not see had just chosen her before all the highborn daughters who had been paraded before my throne with cold eyes and warm ambitions. She knew only that a man was cold, and she was kind, and that was enough for her. That was everything. "When the storm breaks," I said carefully, "things may change for you, more than you can guess." "Things don't change for people like me," she said without bitterness, only the flat certainty of someone who had learned it early. "But that's a kind thing to say. Finish your bread." I finished the bread. She took the empty bowl and told me to sleep in the straw, and that she would wake me before the innkeeper rose so I could be gone before I was found. She gave me the good horse blanket. She gave me the place nearest the warm stones, her place, I understood, for the straw there was worn to the shape of someone who slept there when the kitchen let her. She gave me every small thing she had and asked for nothing, and went back inside to be shouted at for taking too long. I did not sleep. I sat in the dark with my back to the warm wall and I made my plans, and my wolf paced them out beside me, and outside the storm screamed itself hoarse against the mountain and could not touch me anymore. Dawn came gray and still, The snow had stopped, and into that stillness came a sound I knew, hooves, many of them disciplined, climbing the pass in formation. My guard. They had orders to find me at the first inn beyond the Scarn Ridge on the morning after the storm, and my captain, Sir Bramwell, did not fail an order. I heard the great door of the inn thrown open, heard boots and the clatter of the common room emptying its curious drinkers into the yard. I rose, brushed the straw from my ruined cloak, and walked out of the stable as I was ragged, unshaven, coinless, into the crowd gathering in the trampled snow. The innkeeper was there, red-faced and blustering, demanding to know what the king's own riders wanted with his humble house. And there was Wren at the edge of the yard with a bucket in her hands, staring, small, forgotten by all of them. Sir Bramwell saw me. He crossed the yard through the astonished crowd, and 40 armored men went to one knee in the snow, and my captain bowed his head and said, in a voice made to carry across a battlefield, "Your Grace, we have searched every road. Thank the old gods you are well." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. I watched it move across their faces, the innkeepers, going white as the drifts as he remembered the door he had shut, the drinkers who had laughed at the beggar, every soul who had turned from a cold man with nothing. And I watched it reach Wren last of all. The bucket slipped from her hands. She did not kneel. She only stared, and her lips shaped a word that made no sound, and I saw her begin to be afraid of what her kindness had bought her. I walked to her through the kneeling men. I stopped an arm's length away, close enough that only she could hear me, and I did the only thing a king should ever do with such a woman. I gave her the choice. "Last night a beggar knocked at this door," I said, "and every soul here turned him away but one. You fed me with your own supper. You gave me your fire and your place and your blanket, and you asked me for nothing, not knowing who I was, which is the only way a true heart is ever proven. I have crossed my whole kingdom in rags searching for a heart that opens the door when it costs something to open it. I have found it. And I will not command it, because a thing commanded is worth nothing." I held out my hand, palm up, the way she had held the bowl out to me. "Come and be queen of the Northreach, Wren, or send me on my way with a full belly and my thanks, and I will change the laws of this land in your name whether you take my hand or not. But I would rather change them beside you." She looked at my open hand for a long moment. Then she looked up at my face, and I saw her decide that I was still the cold man she had pitied, that the crown had not made me less deserving of an open door but more. She set her chapped hand in mine. My wolf sang. The warmth I had felt in the stable flooded through me twofold, and I closed my fingers around hers as though I had been given something no king before me had ever held. I kept my word about the law. Within the month I had it written into the codes of the Northreach that no traveler on any road under my crown could be turned from an inn's fire in a killing storm for want of coin. That shelter on such a night was owed, not sold, and the crown would pay the reckoning of any house that gave it. The lords grumbled. I did not care. I had learned in a stable on the Scarn Pass that the measure of a kingdom is not its armies, but the smallest hand that will open a door to a nobody in the dark. They call it Wren's Law now. She insists the name is too much. I tell her it is not nearly enough, and I press a bowl of warm soup into her hands because I remember every winter exactly what a small kindness is worth. It is worth a crown. It is worth a wolf's whole heart. It is worth everything I have.